Hey everybody, welcome to Capital of Combat. The name says it all. I'm Hakeem Rob, and today we are going to explore our pound for pound list. Now, this is a mythical list. It's not like an actual official ranking. It has really no weight on anything that's really going on in the boxing world. It's just a list that people like to see to cause debate, really. And in the criteria is, if these people were at any weight class, how would they fare? And it was originally created for when Sugar Ray Robinson was coming up back in like the early 40s and the 50s, because then the baddest man on the planet was the heavyweight champ of the world.
That's right.
And that really was the case all the way up until maybe I want to say the mid 90s, like around the time where the more foreigners start to come into play as far as the heavyweight title. So Americans kind of dismissed it, the heavyweight division.
That's right.
And began to look at the lower divisions where Americans were prevalent and dominating. So it's a very, very, very subjective list. And if you go on different websites, you will get a plethora of different lists, because like I said, it's very subjective. It's based on what whoever made their list like. And for Rob and I, we are very fond of people who what's the word I'm looking for? Who display the technical fundamentals of boxing. We like people who have great jabs. We like people who have crisp counters, who are very accurate. We like people with defense, people who know how to move in the ring. And when we say movement, we mean cutting angles, working in circles, and not like just turning around and running, or like
not useless movement.
Right, not useless movement. And that's even for people who come forward. People who come forward and use good move. There's a very technical and fundamental way to apply pressure as well.
That's right.
So without further ado, we're going to go into our list, and we're going to start from the bottom. And for number 10, we have Saul Canelo Alvarez. Now, Alvarez just lost his last fight, asterisk, it was to the best fighter in the world.
That's right.
So that already gives away our number 1. So who cares? Go ahead and tell them why we have Alvarez at number 10.
All right, so Alvarez is only 23 years old. He has been built up by Golden Boy. He has great skills, hand speed, power, combinations, has actually improved greatly from when we first watched him. The only thing is, his level of competition hasn't really proved to us that he deserves to be in that upper echelon. Plenty of people will disagree with us, but hey, this is our list, whatever. Yeah. The only real actual fighters that we've seen against that were actually even in the top 5 of his own division was Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Austin Trout. Austin Trout did give him some problems, and we did see the flaws there. And not only that, but when we looked at comparing him to someone, say, in a lower weight class at maybe 130, 135, or even at heavyweight, could he take on the best of that weight class? And from what we saw, we just did not see that, especially when he had his fight with Floyd Mayweather. Yeah. So, a very good boxer, possibly even a counter puncher, or as they say, the urban style boxer, puncher, or just consummate boxer would give him plenty of problems and could beat him on points, a la Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Right. And then, to be fair, he faced 2 people in his last 2 fights that had that slick urban style that Rob refers to in Trout and then Mayweather, and he still, even though he had a few problems, mainly it was stamina. He had great punch selection in that fight with Trout. He was very poised in that fight with Trout.
That's right.
And he did come away with the win in the fight with Trout, and even dropping him for the first time in his career. Now, Mayweather, on the other hand, he was completely out of his league. But, I mean, that's because it's Floyd Mayweather.
That's right.
So, let's go on to number 9, who, at number 9, we have Timothy Desert Storm Bradley. Now, we've seen Tim come up, the first fight I saw him in was his fight against Junior Witter, and I can't even remember how long ago that was, but I didn't think he was that good. Honestly, I was like, this guy wings his punches, he comes in with his head a lot, and I really wasn't too big of a fan. But I just kept watching him, and he has also improved better over the years, and he has taken on a who's who in his divisions from in 140 and 147. The only person he did not fight was Amir Khan, and he skipped over Amir Khan to fight Manny Pacquiao. Now, I don't know about you, but I would take Manny Pacquiao over Amir Khan. So it's really, you can't really knock him for that.
Not at all. And he did win that fight, albeit controversially. But another thing is, Bradley is an example of someone who does just about everything good, but nothing great.
Right.
So someone who could have some skills to kind of offset what he does good, and if they're better than him in other areas, they have a chance at beating him. Again, Manny Pacquiao, who is faster, more explosive, and
more accurate. Yeah, so that's why we have him at number 9. We will see a lot of what he has against Marquez, and depending on the outcome of that fight, he could drop off our list, or he could move up quite a few spots. Next up, that's going to be number 8, is Vladimir Dr. Steelhammer Klitschko. Now, Klitschko is pretty much the textbook European style boxer. He boxes with his head high, behind that 1-2 that's very strong, and that style has worked very well for a lot of people in a lot of different weight classes. And right now he is dominating the glamour division of boxing, which is heavyweight. He has one of the best jabs in history, behind, in my opinion, Larry Holmes and Joe Louis.
And even Sonny Liston had a great jab, so he is up there.
Right, he is up there as far as his jab, and we have seen him win fights with just his jab. So he is good. Now keep in mind, he hasn't really fought people like more explosive or that could get into his wheelhouse that often. The last person that could really make him uncomfortable was Corey Sanders, and he got knocked out by him. But that was like 10 years ago.
So he's learned a lot since then, especially under his training with Emmanuel Stewart.
Right, and he's gotten a lot more composed. He used to run out of gas a lot, which led to his loss against Layman Brewster. And I think it was Ross Purity.
Yes.
That was his first loss. Unfortunately, his chin leaves a lot to be desired, but when you are a 200-pound man and you punch somebody in the face, that can happen. I mean, like, there's not many heavyweights, besides like Rocky Marciano, that haven't been hurt or knocked out. Like, it just comes with the territory. So it is a knock, because if there was somebody like that in the smaller weight class, then yes, that would be a knock. So it's still a knock on Klitschko, which is why we have him low. And also, he has absolutely zero inside game.
Yeah.
Once you get in on him, he's just gonna wrestle you, and that is a skill, but it's not
translatable.
Right.
At this point, because the heavyweight division is seen as weaker right now, we would have to shrink him down to, say, a middleweight. Let's say we put him in with Gennady Golovkin, who is a vicious puncher, can fight on the inside, and can crowd you and has great ring generalship. Now, at a heavyweight, you can be anywhere from 201 to to 350 pounds. That's different when you have to shrink down to a certain weight. So when he's against someone where he's not explicitly bigger than them,
can he do that?
Exactly.
So that is why we have him at number 8. Number 7, we have Sergio Martinez. Now, Sergio Martinez is the middleweight champion of the world. He is currently out injured right now. He's been injured on and off for the last few years.
That's right.
But when he is in the ring, he is very, very skilled. He is very adept at keeping his hands low and still making his opponent miss, which really shouldn't happen. Like, you're supposed to keep your hands up, but he doesn't. I mean, he keeps his hands all the way down at his side and even pokes his chin out at his opponent to bait them in and then counter them with combinations. And that is very unorthodox, but it works. And we've seen it in other fighters like Roy Jones. Joe Calzaghe did it a few times. Mayweather used to do it when he was younger. I mean, it does work. It's not the most technically sound strategy, but Martinez makes it work. Also, he has very decent power. He doesn't have, I would say, like life-taking power outside of that Paul Williams knockout. Yeah, that one was scary, but that was probably like a perfect storm of positioning, counters, because he was throwing that punch that entire fight. He just happened to catch Paul at one time that he didn't see it coming, and it was lights out.
Now the problem with Martinez is he takes rounds off. 2, he can be caught because he does stick that chin out there. He has a tendency to kind of, when he baits you, to showboat, and he has been caught. Darren Barker gave him a little bit of trouble in his fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He basically beat this man for 11.5 rounds and was caught with a counter left, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And he had to hold on for the rest of that round to win. Now, anything could happen over the course of the fight. That could have ended up very badly after those 11.5 rounds.
Yep. So that's why we have Martinez at that. And like we said, if it's at another weight, say if he's at heavyweight and someone hits him like that, if Vladimir Klitschko hits someone who's doing what Sergio Martinez does in the ring, it's lights out. So that's why we have him a little bit lower. Next up at number 6, we have, that is number 6, right?
That is number 6.
Okay, sorry. It's getting late. Sorry, people. We have the Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire. Now, we really like Nonito Donaire
A lot.
but lately he has fallen in love with his power, and everything that we liked about him, he stopped doing. Nonito Donaire had an awesome jab. He had great counter punching ability.
Great footwork.
Awesome footwork. I mean, I think it was Vladimir Sidorenko. He knocked him out by switching stances 4 times and hitting this guy with a lead uppercut. You don't see that too often. Now, I don't care what weight class you at. You see somebody do that, that is impressive.
I'm backing off.
Right. His knockout of Vic Darchinyan with the counter what they call the check hook.
That's right.
He knocked Darchinyan out so bad he didn't even know he got knocked out. I mean, that is impressive. Fernando Montiel, man, I mean,
That was scary too.
yeah. But those knockouts started to kind of get to him. He was like, hey, I can just hit people with this left hook, they'll go down. He had a lot of trouble with Jeffrey Matebula, who was a very tall, rangy, volume puncher. But he still beat him, and he also broke his jaw. So that's why we have him ranked high, because of his past abilities and his potential as well.
Now the problem is he tries to force his power instead of setting up or letting it come to him.
He used to do.
And again, he has great skills. I don't know if he's trying to be impressive to the networks, to his promoter, or to himself. But it will come. His fights will, again, Matebula, Wilfredo Vasquez Jr., Toshiaki? Nishioka, I'm sorry. Screwed that up.
No, that's his first name.
Oh. Still. Nishioka, he tried to force it, but when he settled and let it come to him, it happened.
Right.
And again, against the one fighter who beat him last, Guillermo Rigondeaux, it was someone who was patient, who tried to, someone that could walk to him. And because he tried to force it, Rigondeaux just ate him up with counters. I mean, he just thoroughly outclassed him. So we're not knocking Donaire. He has great skills when his mind is set to
use them.
Exactly.
All right, so next up, we have the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. So that's what, number 4?
That is 5.
I'm just all off. I'm sorry, guys. Number 5, Manny Pacquiao. Now, Manny Pacquiao for a long time was the number 2 or the number 1 guy, depending on who you ask. And like I mentioned earlier, his style will give anybody fits.
Anybody.
I mean, he is blindingly fast. That left hand is a monster. And for a long time, he was just a one-handed fighter. And kind of, he still is mostly a one-handed fighter. Like, you really have to look out for that left hand. You know it's coming, but you can't stop it. He has very good head movement. His angle work has gotten much better over the years from his tutelage with Freddie Roach. I mean, he can now disguise that left hand much better.
That's right.
He began to develop his right hook, which dropped Ricky Hatton, dropped Miguel Cotto, gave Juan Manuel Marquez a few issues.
He actually was winning that last fight with him, and he utilized that right hook.
Right. He was on all cylinders in that 4th Marquez fight. I think that was the best I had seen him look since he was at like 126, 130. Like, he looked spectacular in that fight. And that was the Manny Pacquiao that everybody had fallen in love with. The first time I had seen him was against Marco Antonio Barrera. And I was like, man, like, I was a big Barrera fan, and he just ate Barrera up for lunch. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I like him. But unfortunately, he has a defense that leaves a little to be desired. He has an awesome chin, by the way, because of that said lack of defense. Because, I mean, he's taking some punches from some heavy-handed guys like Margarito. Miguel Cotto busted his eardrum. You would have never known it from that fight because he put it on Miguel Cotto. Juan Manuel Marquez hurt him in every single fight they had, but he kept coming back, with the exception of that last one, which I think we're going to do a technical toolbox on that one day, because that has a lot of elements in there that needs to be broken down so people can see that, one, it wasn't a lucky punch,
Right.
and 2, Marquez has been using that punch on him for all 4 fights. So that's another, he never adjusted to the style of Marquez to where he could beat him convincingly.
Now, with Pacquiao, if you look at his fights, he has consistently fought someone bigger than him, possibly with the exception of Marquez, because their last fight, well, through their fights, he was mostly maybe the same size or a little bit bigger, except for the last fight where Marquez came in looking like a bodybuilder almost. Because of those wars, I mean, you're talking about Margarito, who probably took years off his career, the knockout to Marquez, the fight with Miguel Cotto, he did take punishment in that. Those fights wear on you. He has been in wars. I mean, you're talking about fights with Barrera, Morales, Marquez, Margarito, not so much De La Hoya, but I mean, heavy-handed guys who may have lost and even gotten knocked out, but have hit him.
Yeah, and Joshua Clottey too. Like it, Manny Pacquiao dominated that fight, but if you look at his face, you could tell he was in a fight.
Now, we just don't know if he, at this point, is a broken Pacquiao, or is he going to come back with that same ferocity that he had against Marquez. Yeah. Because I think he put a lot into that fight. He was ready because he looked focused as I've seen him. He was in great shape, and he was determined because he wanted to end this once and for all. They both did. Unfortunately, it did not go his way. So we're going to wait to the Rios fight to see how he really looks, how he comes back. and wants to finish his career.
Yeah, and last thing on Pacquiao, he's really the definition of the whole pound for pound list because, like Rob said, he was outweighed by almost all of his opponents. I mean, this guy he turned pro like 15 to 16 years old. He was 108 pounds. He's now 32, 33,
Just about,
fighting at 147. I mean, that's a lot of weight classes, and he has won 8 separate divisional world titles, 4 lineal titles. He's the first man to ever do that, and so his career is pretty much the definition of pound for pound, like I said. So
that's why he's at number 5 right now, and
only because he lost to number 4,
which is Juan Manuel Marquez.
Right. Juan Manuel Marquez is the consummate. I should say it's not adapter, but he is a survivalist. He will find a way to win, no matter what. And we've seen him go life and death with some ordinary guys like Juan Diaz, Michael Katsidas. Joel Casimiro is a very good fighter, but at the time he fought him, he was on his way down, and he still had problems with him. But like I said, he finds a way to win. It kind of comes from him being a slow starter. You know, he's trying to figure you out, and figure out how he's going to implement his game plan on you, and which is why he's had so many tough fights with Manny Pacquiao. He's technically better than Manny Pacquiao, but because Manny Pacquiao started so fast and is very good himself, he usually had to dig himself out of the hole to make that fight competitive.
That's right.
And the one fight, there was 2 fights where he looked bad. It was the Chris John fight, which a lot of people didn't see because it was right after the first Pacquiao fight, and it happened in Indonesia. And the Floyd Mayweather fight, and once again, he's number 1. So
right.
You really can't fault him for that. But yeah, there's really not much to say about Marquez. He pretty much shows all the skills that we have talked about from all of the other fighters previously on this list, which is why he's higher than those fighters. And really the only fighter that's really given him any trouble has been Manny Pacquiao.
That's right.
So that's why he's above Manny now, because he holds a knockout victory over him. And not only a knockout victory, but an emphatic knockout victory.
Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Oh, I'm sure they've seen it. But
watch it again. Screw it. Watch it again.
Enjoy it. You'll see it many more times in between the fights with Tim Bradley and the fight with Brandon Rios, Pacquiao Rios. So you'll catch it again if you haven't seen it. And if you like seeing it over and over again, you'll see it over and over again. Let's go on to number 3. Number 3, we have Cuban amateur
legend.
Yeah, amateur legend Guillermo Rigondeaux. Is it Rigondeaux? I don't know.
Rigondeaux.
He's a beast. Let's just put it like that. Guillermo the Beast. We really like that he displays very textbook technical skill that comes from being in the amateurs for so long. He is a master at setting traps. Marquez sets traps really well, but the traps that Rigondeaux sets are awe-inspiring. I mean, he will lure you into shots that you didn't even think that he was going to throw. It's just a work of art when you see his counter-punching ability. His spacing with his feet, his ability to cut angles, his feints are very, very unorthodox. He will actually put the punch out there before he hits you with it. He will sit there as a southpaw and put his left hand straight out here like this, like, no, he's not close enough yet. Pow, now he is. Like, it's beautiful to see him do that, and he has knocked out many a fighter doing it.
That's right.
Now, his style leaves a lot to be desired in the action category, but his tool set negates most other fighters. I don't think there's anybody on the list below him that would outbox him, which is why we have him so high. And then he fought Donaire. They were in the same weight class, and he completely handcuffed him. So he has a fight against someone on this list. That is why we have him so high. Like, his technical skill is just unmatched except for our number 2 and number 1 fighter, and he's got power. And in 12 fights, I mean, he's a world champ. I think twice over.
That's right.
He has defended those titles, and we really look forward to seeing him again, maybe in some big fights, if the networks and his promoter can get their head out their butts and see that this guy has skill and he can be promoted big time in Florida. I mean,
Definitely.
Yeah. Number 2, we have Andre S.O.G. Ward. Now, Andre Ward was the last Olympic gold medalist for the United States in 2004. Mm-hmm. So in 2008 and 2012, we had one medalist.
One men's medalist. That was Deontay
Yes.
Wilder. He got the bronze in 2008. After that, only the women boxers, which was their first year on the Olympic, in the Olympic events, where they got a gold and silver medal.
No, bronze.
A gold and bronze
Marlon
medal.
Esponza got the bronze, and Clarissa Shields got the gold. So shout outs to them. But yes, as far as the male boxing goes, Andre Ward is the last fighter to win the gold medal. And as you know, that was a big deal for a very long time until the Americans started not doing so well, and then became not that big of a deal.
But that's for another time. We won't even go into detail with that.
We Americans and our egocentrism. But Andre Ward was moved very slow, very carefully. He had a lot of injuries. He had torn his ACL at one point, had a lot of layoffs. And people were kind of saying like, hey, he's pretty good, but we don't think he's going to make it until the Super 6 tournament.
Look here. Andre Ward is the definition of a guy who wins. It's not always pretty. It is not always exciting. But he hasn't lost since he was a child. Not even a teenager yet. I think he was like 12. When he was an amateur. From now, he is 28, 29.
Yep.
Since he was 12, he has not lost a fight.
That speaks volumes. So he has fought any style you could think of, most times at the drop of a hat, because he's only been a pro for a few years, and he hasn't lost since he was a preteen. That says a lot about how good Andre Ward is, and he really has nowhere to go but up. I mean, he is pretty much in an island by himself in his division. He beat every top fighter in that division. They had Chad Dawson come down from the higher division to fight him. He's probably going to have to go up to light heavyweight and fight Adonis Stevenson, unless Adonis Stevenson comes back down. But really, there's not too many people that you can even see that will give him any trouble.
And with actual trouble, they had to find an opponent in Edwin Rodriguez, who is a good fighter, but he isn't on Andre Ward's list. He's clean. He's beaten Mikhail Kessler. He's beaten Arthur Abraham. He's beaten Chad Dawson. He's beaten Carl Froch. He's beaten Saki Obika. He has beaten, who else?
Everybody. Alan Green.
Anyone he has fought, he has and he's mainly done it either with athleticism, skill, or he just straight bullied them. Yep. Right now, I don't see anyone. You can move him from any weight class. His style is basically win. He finds a way to win. He comes in with a plan, can stick to it, and if need be, adjust.
Yep. And that is the intangible that a lot of people don't have, except for numero uno. You already know who it is. Pretty Boy Floyd, a.k.a. Money Mayweather.
That's right.
Now, we've seen the skills in the ring. What we believe sets Floyd Mayweather apart from everyone else is the work ethic in the gym that he puts in. Now, we've seen him fight many styles over his career. He has handcuffed them all. And then people are saying, he had a little trouble in that first Castillo fight, and he said like he tore his rotator cuff or something like that. But then he fights Castillo again and completely handcuffs him. And 11 years later, people are still saying, oh, you got to put pressure on him. You don't think he's learned in that 11 years how to not have someone put pressure on him? Ask Ricky Hatton how putting pressure on Floyd Mayweather works.
I believe he was caught by a check hook in that fight, which guided him into a ring post.
Yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of fighters that have tried that and failed. There have been fighters who have tried to outbox him. Zab Judah had a little bit of success, but then that intangible happened. Floyd Mayweather adjusted. Shane Mosley hit him with a hellacious right hand. By the end of that round, Floyd Mayweather was walking him down. He has a toughness that people really try to brush to the side because they don't like his personality. The personality he halfway has and halfway exaggerates to sell tickets because he doesn't want you to like him, so you can pay to watch him lose, and then you lose your money because you're upset because he whooped that person's butt, because he's in the gym 2-3 times a day at all hours of the night when the other guy's out partying or they're sleeping. He's training, and he trains like no other. So that is why he's number one. He does have the skills, but he hones those skills like a madman to stay sharp and keep going.
So basically, this dude is undefeated for a reason over the last 10 years, 10, 15 years of his career, facing all sorts of styles. I mean, who out there do you think in his weight class can beat him? There's only one guy that's even possible, and let's be honest, that fight's not going to happen. It would be by the grace of God that that fight happens, but it's not going to happen.
And if it did, I think a lot of people would be very mad. So that's all I got to say about that. That's all we got for you guys. I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments on this one, and we are very happy for you to be commenting on. Let us know how you feel. I know somebody probably want to add Bernard Hopkins to that list. We'll talk about that in the comment section. Let's chop it up, guys. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe. If not, send a Rob to your house. Peace.
This is round one and you've already lost. They don't seem to see that everything we've done is coming and cost. My fists are on fire, I perform till I perspire. My demons are in a rage, keep thinking that it's a game. I kick rhyme, hurricane, I told them I don't play, I'm liquid.
Black Street Fighter.